Hello and welcome to the Expat Reality Podcast. I'm your host Annie.
And I'm your host Steve.
And in this podcast, we're going to explore the reality of living life as an expat in Australia and what it really means to feel like you belong.
Join us as we uncover the challenges and opportunities that expat life presents on the search for settled.
With our stories, tips and interviews, see us as your two friends to help you navigate expat life abroad. Just to let you know, this video podcast series is brought to you by the team at Auric Migration and Mobility. Now, Auric have helped us personally with my visa process to Australia, and we only know too well how difficult the entire process can be if you're doing it by yourself. They have also helped hundreds of our followers, and they're offering our listeners an initial assessment for free. Email them your visa situation, questions or concerns, and they will get back to you at no extra cost. Simply mention the Expat Reality Podcast when you email them at migration@auric.com. Auric is spelled AUREC. So that's migration@auric.com. Welcome back, everybody, to the Expat Reality Podcast. I'm your host, Annie.
And I'm your host, Steve.
And today's guest, we are talking to one of our long-term followers called Amy Butters. Hi, Amy.
Hello, you two. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Thank you so much for coming on the show today. So, but I think maybe about a couple of weeks ago, I put it on our Instagram page, which is called The London and Sydney. And I asked everybody, what sort of topics you want us to discuss on our podcast. And Amy came back and she was like, I want you to talk about feeling the guiltiest expat. And I was like, that's a very big topic for us expats that we all seem to go through. And I was like, let's get you on the show. Let's have a chat. If you haven't heard of Amy before, she's actually written on our site. So she has shared not only her guides for the Central Coast, but also she shared her story as well. So today we're going to talk a bit more in depth about Amy's journey, especially since she first wrote for us as well. So let's get into it. So Amy, thanks for coming on the show today. And I just wanted to get started really by asking you, what made you move to Australia and how long have you been here for?
So I don't want to be that person because we've heard it all before, but I moved for a boy.
Oh, really? Was he a good looking
very
boy?
familiar.
I don't like admitting it. You can't hear me, but yeah, I guess he's all right. No, it is a funny story. It's one of those where I don't know where it came from. I've just always had something telling me I need to go to Australia, literally since I was in primary school even. I don't think I even knew anyone that had been. I don't know how I'd heard of it other than maybe geography lesson, no clue. But there was just something that I was like, yep, I'll go there one day. Always just to do the backpacking, traveling, hostel situation. Never in a million years thought I'd move here. And it just got to a point where I think I was 21 and I just thought, well, now's a good time to go because I've got no money and no responsibilities. So of course, best time, not. But anyway, so I started I went for an interview for a pub. The plan was I'll just work every hour under the sun, save up all the money. And then in the group job interview, that really awful situation where you have to take turns and introduce yourself.
Oh, no.
I heard this voice behind me like, I'm not going to do the accent because I really.
Oh no! Please, you have to. Please, just for me. Do the accent. Yes.
I don't even know. I always go to say good day, but I know he didn't say that. But he was just like, "Hi, I'm Ryan."
Hi, I'm Ryan.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. He's got a good name for an Aussie twang, though. It's like Ryan. Easy to do.
I like it. Anyway, I like it. I would. I'd date him anyway.
He doesn't. Yeah. I'll pass that on. But I heard this like, hi, I'm Ryan, and I was just like, why? I recognise that accent. And I remember just thinking, like, oh, please be handsome. And then I turned around and I was like, yeah, he's handsome. Okay, that's good. And then did the interview. And then on the walk home, rang mum. She's like, oh, how'd it go? And I was like, I've met my husband. He's Australian. We're going to be together forever. La, la, la. Obviously, like completely sarcastically. And she's like, okay, but have the interview. Long story short, there were 2 jobs at this pub. Ryan and I got them. And the rest is history, as they say. So we met obviously that way and worked together. That was in April. I think we started the job in May and had our first date in May 2014 this was, and August of that year we moved to Australia, which is very fast.
Wow.
I would usually recommend, but yeah, when I say it out loud I think, what on earth, like just 3 months and let's just move to not just another country but one ridiculously far away, one I'd never been to. So yeah, terrifying. But the reason he was there was because he is also from England. Family emigrated when he was about 2 or 3, I think. So he grew up over here, spent 20 plus years obviously going to school and everything, hence having the twang. And then he was on a sort of working holiday to figure out if he wanted to move to England or not. And that's where he was then applying for the same job for the same reasons, I guess, just to work lots and save and figure life out as you do in early 20s. And yeah.
So this was like a love at first sight thing. I feel like this is like straight up.
It
was like love at first sight. Yeah, you kind of knew, and then it all moved pretty quickly, and you're like, that's it, we're moving out to the other side of the world. Let's do it.
What made you sort of decide within 3 months that was it him who said, I want to go back to Australia? Or
so he can be the judge of if it was love at first sight, but it was definitely love at first curiosity when I heard the accent. And then I actually remember, and he'll hate me for saying it, but I remember thinking like, it's a shame he's really quiet and really boring. But that's that. And I've told him that, it's not new. But we were just shy, I guess. But I was so curious. I was like, why on earth, when you live in Australia, have you moved back here? Of everywhere in the world, I just couldn't wrap my head around it. Obviously, I didn't know the full story and everything. And I just kept asking, have you been here? Have you been here? Have you actually been to Bondi Beach? Have you been to the Opera House? He's like, yes, thinking I'm a freak. But I guess that kind of hurried things along in the sense of I didn't really leave him alone. I was just bugging him all the time. We got to know each other quickly because we were working long hours at this pub. And I was just like, have you been here? Have you been there? So that's that.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you sort of think about moving, I mean, you kind of, that would have entered your mind at some point. So, I mean, you thought about Australia, and what did you kind of know about Australia at that point? Were you kind of, was there much sort of thinking about sort of moving at that point? Or how did that play out?
I don't know what I was thinking, in all honesty. It was, I think it was just, I was young, naive, very excited with like a new romance as well, where you're all giddy. I just thought, what could go wrong? And it was very fast. And like I said, I never wanted or never had even contemplated moving and living there. I just thought, right, I'll get the 1 year working holiday visa, travel around, la, la, la. But what helped was that he had his family home here still. So we had that as a base. He had his brother there who I'd briefly met because he had visited him. So I wasn't going to complete unknown. I had someone as a bit of a rock, I guess. Obviously that came with its challenges. We were still 3 months into being together and you're still learning about each other every day and everything. So it wasn't all plain sailing, but I don't really know where I was going with that. Sorry.
So you were there, so you got your 1 year working holiday visa. So where were you based in Australia for that 1 year?
Well, this was the thing. He lived or had grown up on the Central Coast, which is where we're living now and where we lived at the time. When I was quizzing him about his life, he told me about it. I was like, where on earth is that? I've never heard of it. Not many people have from England, I don't think. It's always, I'll go to Sydney or I'll go to Melbourne or Brisbane. It's like the big 3, or Perth 4. When you're doing your research, and I don't know if you guys remember STA Travel.
Yeah, that's where I booked my trip from. When I did my working holiday, went to STA Travel in Brighton in England, and I was like, that's it, I'm going to Australia. I booked my little round the world ticket, and that was it. Rest was history, really. So.
I know, it's like the dream started, now they're gone. It's really sad. But I used to go in all the time, steal all the free brochures and just research, cut out the little pictures and pin them up. And not once did I read about the Central Coast. So that was all new. But I was like, sure, we Google imaged the hell out of it. he was walking me around on Google Maps. This is my road. This is the street down to here and there. So I felt a bit like I'd been there before in a way.
Did you have a vision in your head of like, you're thinking, oh, this is like paradise. We're going to be turning up to palm trees. You know, people going to the beach every day, you know, half days of work most days. People go to the pub and say, hi, Bruce, how you going? And, you know, that sort of stuff. Did you have that kind of vision in your mind? I mean, my bigger question might be, did it live up to that?
Oh. Did it live up to it? No, because yes, I did have all those thoughts. I was like, surely it's just like Neighbours and Home and Away and everything. So it is hard when you go. And plus, I think if you go over and you're traveling, it's very much like, well, if you don't like somewhere, you move on. It's very much you're jumping around, hopping around. But there, I was like, this is where we are. We're going to have to figure it out. And I didn't hate it. So, oh God, I sound like I really despise it all. I didn't. It's a beautiful part of the world, hence why we're living here now. But it was very hard because we went with no money. We did as much planning as we could, but we hadn't had a lot of time to save up as we would in an ideal world. We didn't have a car. So that was difficult. As you guys know, getting around on public transport, relying on people, that's really difficult. And also because we didn't have money behind us, we got a job, full-time jobs. So we were commuting to Sydney. It was like all up over 4 hours a day on the train.
Oh, really?
Wow.
And I can't lie. I was a bit like, well, this isn't what I had.
No, so that would have been the, you know,
obviously we had great times in between. Did all touristy things as much as we could. But yeah, it was a struggle at times. And that's probably why I only lasted until my visa expired after that year and came home, was missing family. My sister just had her second baby that I'd not yet met. So I just had all these ties, and I want to reiterate, I didn't hate it. I don't regret it at all. It was brilliant, but there were some very tough times because of our lack of planning and rushing to the adventure, I guess. But you live and you learn. It wasn't all bad.
I think that's the thing though about moving over, because I remember before I came over, you know, I used to have a bit similar to you. I'd like grew up with this sort of fascination with Australia. And I think that is probably down to Home and Away and Neighbours and Heartbreak High, which are like my 3 shows that I loved watching. And like, I always wanted to go to an Australian school. I thought it was like, would be the best thing ever. And so, you know, when you've got that sort of idea in your head as a child, and then you start to grow up and you're like, after finishing university, you get that little bracket in your life where you're like, before starting work, and it's like, right, got that 1 year gap year away, let's do it. And for me, I was just like, I want to go straight to Australia. That's what I want to do. I want to go live in paradise, you know, where no one works and everyone just sits on the beach all day and they're throwing a shrimp on the barbie and drinking beer, and like that's what the life in Australia looks like.
In TV world, no one actually works. You don't see them sitting at the desk. I mean, they're pretty boring TV.
They're drinking Fosters.
You know, newsflash, no one drinks Fosters here. Just in case
I learned that quickly at the pub as well.
I think that's the problem really, is you come over and you think, oh, well, my life's going to be so different, so far removed, because I'm just going to be on holiday all the time. And then, like you said, you then ended up having to commute 2 hours just to work and then another 2 hours back each day. So that must be such a huge sort of shock to the system where you're like, it's not quite what I was imagining it to be. So
exactly right.
When you moved back, did you both move back together or did you go back separately?
We went back separately, but I don't really remember the reasons, to be completely honest. I think it was 8 weeks or something. He was always going to join me. Like, we didn't split up or anything like that. It was tricky. I think it's just going to be an ongoing thing. I don't know if you guys are in the same boat, but it's just, I described him as a ticking time bomb because I knew it was going to come up again, that he's going to want to move back. It was just a matter of time. When is that going to be? And we'll just have to cross that bridge when it comes to it. But now that we're here again, maybe I'm the ticking time bomb probably. When am I going to say, oh, actually, I need to go back now, had enough or whatever. So it's very tough, but it's also a privilege, isn't it? That's what I tell myself anyway. It's a good problem to have. But yeah, it's tricky.
So I'm really keen to know, like, what is it that kind of keeps reappearing or what is it that nags in your mind? You're thinking, you know what, I think I just need to go back. Like, what are those things that are ticking over in your head when, you know, you start thinking about moving back? What actually draws you back home?
It's solely family and friends. I can't say I miss the place. I was very lucky where all my family are from Bournemouth, so beautiful part of England. Probably the most, maybe not compared to Cornwall, but I've never been there, unfortunately. But I think Bournemouth, because it's such a beautiful beach and coastal town, it is as Aussie as you're going to get in England. So it's quite a nice little tester of all the surfers and everything. But yeah, it's solely the people. And that's the pull. And just with, when families getting older and you just think time is so precious, and no matter what we say, it is really far away. It's only a day away, but it's very far and very expensive to get back and forth. So yeah, that's what pulls on the heartstrings.
And I think, like, if you like sort of think of the flip side, like, what are the advantages of staying here? Like, what if you were to sort of weigh that up, what sort of things sort of keep you here at the moment?
Yeah, it's really tough. I know you two will understand when I say the lifestyle, but to explain that to someone in England who's never been here, I sound like I'm hiding some top secret that the government's told me never to share, but I'm just like, I cannot put it into words. I don't know how to explain it other than the lifestyle, whether it's just, it sounds ridiculous when you say it out loud, but it's like everyone gets up earlier. Well, you could do that at home as well. And I know you could, but there is just something different about it. I didn't get up earlier. We didn't get up
well,
earlier.
It's raining outside. It's
it's raining. It's not very
and...
enticing. Exactly. And I had a job there that I really, really loved. That was another big thing. I was thinking, why not many people can say they love their jobs? Why would I quit that to move over? But at the time, I wasn't hating life. I wasn't miserable or anything, but I woke up, went to work, came home, dinner, bed. And I think sadly that is the routine. And it wasn't until I got here, it was just such a smack in the face, really. I was just like, oh wow, there's a whole life. And people talk about I'm going to get it wrong, I'm not good with numbers, but the 5 to 9 after the 9 to 5, I think is the saying, of the evening. You don't just have to sit in, go to bed, and then start again the next day. People just really just make the most of things. I'm throwing all like the cheesy cliche one-liners, but the whole, oh, I'm going to get it wrong again. Live to work. No. Work to live. No. You know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
You don't live to work. You work to live. So
thank you.
There you
That's
go.
exactly what.
That's right.
I knew I could trust you guys.
So I think that's a very important point, is that people do get up earlier. They get up, they do stuff in the morning and do exercises, yoga. I mean, I used to be a super duper big night person, and I think over time, after Annie's input, I've slowly become a morning person, which is super weird. But I think in general, Australia is very much a morning focused place. And especially, up here when you're near a beach, we're up in sort of southeast Queensland, or, wherever you are that's near a beach, that's the thing. Everyone's out early.
I think it's really hard to sort of replicate the lifestyle over here, because when we moved back in 2018, and I was like, I'm determined to continue it on. I'm going to have my big green juices every day. I'm going to go for my morning run. And it's so, so hard to continue that, because, your morning run at 6 a.m. when it's like pitch black and it's freezing outside, and you're just like, oh, do I really want to do that? And it's not as exciting as getting up on a warm morning at 5 a.m. and going for a run along the beach and then going for a swim after. So it's really, really hard to sort of be able to continue that on, I think. And I can totally see what you're saying. It is really difficult to be able to sort of explain that to people who've never been here, because they'll be like, well, you can still have your green juice over here, and there's still gyms here as well. So what's the big difference, really? And that's just such a difficult thing to explain.
It is. It's really tough. I think as well, a big thing is, I don't know if it's just my experience, but people here just seem more open-minded, even just about mental well-being and things like that. Everyone talks about it here. They have hobbies that help them. It sounds so ridiculous and so easy, but I don't know. I went back home recently. So I left here New Year's Eve, got back just at the start of February. I wouldn't have chosen to go back at that time for obvious reasons. Not the warmest part of the world, but I don't know. It's just, I don't know if it's hard because my family watch the news, and I know it's ignorance is bliss is not great in every sense, but I don't watch the news here, and I try and, since the whole C word, COVID, try and avoid it as much as possible. I just felt there was this heaviness and just the negativity as well. And that doesn't make my expat guilt better, because I just think I just want to scoop everyone up and take them back with me, because I want to show them, like, it doesn't have to be like this. But it's just very hard not to get sucked into the bubble when you're over there. Everyone is talking about the cost of living and inflation and the energy crisis and everything, and you just think, oh my goodness, it's really difficult. And I feel bad. Like I said, I just want to save everyone and bring them over here.
I was gonna ask you actually about that. So, so obviously since you did your working holiday visa and you went back to the UK, now you're based in Australia again. And obviously you went back recently. What was that actually like to go back? So obviously you're mentioning, the negativity that is obviously apparent in the UK. And, I don't think that's something that has probably changed that much really in years, because I know being back there, it isn't as positive as you might hope it to be in general. But, what sort of differences did you find after being over here for the last few years? Is there anything that really stood out for you going back?
Well, I guess I skipped this part. We moved here February 2020. And as we all know, the borders closed March 2020. So we snuck in I think it was about 3 weeks before. I think looking back now, it was a blessing in disguise, because I didn't have the choice of freaking out and panic buying a flight home if it all got a bit much. That choice was taken away, which at the time was horrific. But now I think, like I said, probably a blessing, because it forced me to just accept I'm here now for God knows how long. It could be 10 years. Thank God it wasn't. But yeah, that was tough. But then thankfully, when all the borders were open again, happier times, I went back last August for a family wedding. So that was for obviously lovely reasons. It was a great time of the year to go back, and I had the best time ever. And because it was booked months ahead as well, it was lovely just to make those plans with friends and family, get things booked. We were all counting down the days, like on WhatsApp every morning. It was like, this many sleeps till I fly. And it was just a lovely buzz about it. Obviously a 2.5 year reunion as well. It was beautiful. But then I unfortunately had to go back again, like I mentioned just before, at the end of last year, very unexpectedly, because sadly my grandma passed away. So I went back for the worst reasons during the worst time of the year. And obviously it was in our family bubble, it was an awful time. But I think as well, like I was saying, I hope it was the time of year and everyone was a bit down because it was cold and dark, and they're now counting down to summer days, because I hate the thought of it being like that all the time. But I didn't notice that in August, when I was able to meet friends in like pub beer gardens and walk on the beach and things like that. So it sounds ridiculous how much weather can have an effect on our literal lives, outlook, mental well-being, everything, but it really does. But then on the flip side, no one told me how cold it got over here, how much it rains. So that's a lie that needs to
yeah, it's not like, sunshine and rainbows all the time.
No.
So like everyone's, it's so sunny in Australia. Yeah, but they forget to tell you when it rains, it really rains.
And it's cold in houses as well. Let's not forget that
housing
one.
is really
exactly
poor
right.
insulation.
I've never owned an electric blanket before I moved here. Never owned a tumble dryer before we moved here, which is so odd and just backwards to me, but you've got to laugh about it. But yeah, when it's cold, it's really
Yeah, that's completely right. And so when you were back recently in the UK, like, did you personally notice, because I know obviously being over in Australia, like, we hear about obviously the energy crisis and the cost of living over there is going up, and I'm like, how much is it really? Like, did you notice anything in the shops being like, were you like really shocked about certain things being expensive or anything like that? Had it changed very much?
Honestly, I wasn't really looking out for it, so I can't really comment on like food shop and things like that. But I just remember talking to friends and family and then saying how much the rent is, or so and so's just moved and you'll never guess how much they're paying a rent and it's only a one bed, whatever. And yeah, it's just what you hear from real people, not just headlines and news articles and everything. But I said to my mum, I was like, God, even if we wanted to move back, I genuinely don't know if we could. I don't know how we'd afford it starting from scratch again. We would be renting, and it's scary. And then she was just laughing, going, "Oh God, we need to turn off the news because you'll never come home if you're hearing all this." But yeah, it is tough. And like the rent here, it's not cheap, but we're really lucky where we are and the space we've got and everything. So it's definitely a lot better. When I compare, obviously we're very close together. We had a house we were renting in Bournemouth. Compare that to pretty much the same amount we're paying in rent here. It's like a mansion where we are now compared, because that is a big difference. And again, that impacts your daily life, where you're staying or where you're waking up and going to bed every night, especially the both of us work full time from home. So it's a big chunk of our life that we spend here. And we're just, very lucky that we're able to live in such a nice part of the world.
And, did your friends and family, were they sort of commenting as to how they were managing it all right now? Because I've spoken to my brother and he was saying like, that he's no longer having like a bath at night anymore because of the cost of living. And, they're having to be really careful about how many times they put their central heating on. And I mean, like, I just can't even imagine that living here, because we don't even really have to really think about that, do we? But, were your friends and family talking about that at all in terms of how they are managing it?
Yeah, there was just a running theme of don't put the heating on.
Really?
God knows what the bill's going to be, and just put a dressing gown on or another jumper or something. And again, they're trying their best. They're laughing their way through it, like stick another jumper on. But it's going to get you down, isn't it? When there's no light at the end of the tunnel, I guess is what I'm getting at. It's really tough. So yeah, again, it doesn't help with the guilt when I'm like, okay, bye, and they're all going, oh, but you can't wait to get back to the sun, and I'm like, sorry.
Yeah.
And I really like to touch on that whole thing about guilt. And I mean, it is a theme. I know Annie, sort of brings it up with me at times. He goes, expats will feel really guilty. And I was like, it's an interesting thing, because when I think about it as someone who is, native, start again. I'd really like to explore that whole sort of expat guilt thing. Annie always says to me, or she's bringing it up and saying, it's all these expats always feel guilty. And I'm like, well, but why? What's the real kind of reason behind that? Why do you feel guilty for? Is it you're doing something your friends and family aren't, or is there something else like that's sort of deeper beyond that?
I think there's a mix, really. The first thing that came to mind was maybe it's the stereotypical British thing where we apologise all the time, and it's like we don't want to brag or look like we've got something someone else does, you know what I mean? So I think maybe that's a part of it that's literally just come to my head now. But the main thing, I guess, personally anyway, I just feel bad that I'm not there to people. The day that my parents dropped me back to Heathrow to fly back here on the trip just gone, that the week leading up to it was awful. The day, it was as if I felt like I was going to my own funeral or something. The mood was just horrible, and it sounds really sort of egotistical, is that a word, or arrogant to say that about myself, like, oh, they're going to miss me so much. But it is like, my parents, of course, they're going to miss their child, and they struggle knowing how far away it is, and sometimes not knowing when I'm going to be back or anything. So yeah, it was just a really heavy mood. Obviously, I was sad to be going, and the guilt again was really kicking in. And yeah, that's a feeling that's just not nice. I want to skip that as much as possible, but unfortunately can't. But yeah, it's just that whole thing. My parents are moving house. I feel bad that I'm not there to help them pack up. And then my sister's going around spending her weekend to help pack, and I'm just here like, I'm having a great time. Sorry about that. It's just those little things I can't help with, like seeing my granddad now, or doing food shops for the oldies, just the little life things. When you're such a family orientated person, it is a very tough one, very tough. But I must say, everyone is so lovely and so supportive. No one's ever made me feel bad. Like, obviously there's the odd joke and things, but my grandma especially, she was just the absolute best. She told me she missed me all the time, but never once to make me upset or feel guilty. It was just, she couldn't have been more proud, more supportive, and just said all the time, like, live while you're young, you've got to do these things while you're young. And I definitely got my travel bug from her. So in a way now I feel like, it sounds dramatic, but honouring her as well by giving it my best shot. And the same with my granddad. He's just the most beautiful man, and the same. He's just so proud and excited that we get this opportunity.
And I think that's the way to sort of think. I reckon that's the way to think about it. Is it like, you know, your friends and family are going to want the best for you, and then it's kind of like, well, you know, that's kind of fuel to kind of make you think, well, I'm going to make the best of it I possibly can because of that, and be happy, and you know, because that's kind of what they would hope that you would be feeling. So I do get that.
And there was this quote. Sorry, Steve, to interrupt you. There was this quote I saw years ago that said, "To create a life worth missing them for." And I always go back to that and just think, that's the thing. Whenever you are feeling homesick, it's going to happen to the best of us. You've just got to remind yourself while you're here. And that was it. I was having a blip earlier this week, and obviously I've only been back, I think, a week and a day or something. And I said to Ryan, like, oh, I'm struggling a bit, like, just to get back into the life here. And he just knows what to say now. And immediately was like, right, where should we go at the weekend? What beach should we adventure to? Let's go somewhere new. And it's just push yourself out of the routine, because you can even here get stuck into the work life routine, and you've just got to do everything you can to remind yourself why you moved in the first place. That's
what I was going to ask you, actually, in terms of, you know, when you came back here, obviously you had like an emotional goodbye. How did you feel when you landed back in Australia? You know, were you quite pleased to be back, or did you get those sort of expat blues? Because sometimes it can take quite a while to sort of get over that and be like, oh, okay, I'm back now. I need to settle back into life here again.
Yeah, well, I was looking forward to getting back whilst I was home in England. Not that I wasn't itching to get back and thinking, right, I've had enough now, I need to go. But it was also tough because I had a one-way flight booked. The prices were insane. I just can't even describe. So I was checking every day for a flight to get back, and I just didn't have that countdown. I was thinking, oh my God, am I going to be here for 3 months? I don't know what's going on. So that was hard because I didn't know when I was going back. And I was thinking, oh, I miss the beach we go to and our morning walks and seeing all our dog friends, just little things. So I had things that I was excited to get back to. And yeah, I've only been back, like I said, just over a week. So I think I'm okay. It helps that it's sunny, and just keeping in touch with family as best as possible. It's hard with the time difference to do FaceTime and things, but you make it work. But yeah, doing okay.
And so I know you have talked about like that it's pretty hard as an expat to sort of plan for the future. So, you know, how are you sort of working that one out in terms, because I know you said before, are you going to be that person who's going to want to move back next? So how do you feel about your sort of future going forward? Do you feel like you're not really settled in Australia? Do you feel like you want to have your turn next to go back and spend a few years back there? Or how do you see it all sort of working out?
Yeah, we don't really have a plan, to be honest. And that kills me because I love to have a plan. And I think that's the big struggle. And people say all the time, oh, is that you? You're gone forever now. You're going to live there forever. And I'll never say yes, and I'll never say no. It's just, oh, we'll see what happens. I'll never say never, because I just think you don't know what's going to happen in life. And even Ryan says himself, he's like, I might be the one that says, okay, I'm done, let's go. So we don't know, and it's literally just a case of we'll cross that bridge when it comes to it, if it comes to it. But yeah, I can't lie, I've really struggled with that because I'm an overthinker as well, and I like to think of the worst case scenario and have a plan for it in case it does happen. I'm like, well, I know what to do. I've already processed this and planned it all out. It's going to be fine. But in these situations, you can't. You just have to roll with the punches. But yeah, I've been guilty in the sense of I know that you should definitely, where you're living, make it home as much as possible. So literally down to going to Kmart, best shop ever, and getting all the little trinkets and the pictures. And just
there's no affiliate links here. It's just the Kmart.
Don't get Steve to talk about his thoughts around Kmart.
No, look, Kmart to me, I just think, you know, like I don't know. It's not really my store. I just feel like someone's
Steve, you go to Kmart,
chained up to a table to make it, like, or chained to the bench to like sew it. It's like, I don't know. I just don't feel right about it. But
Yeah.
Oh my God! Don't put a downer on this.
I'm not sure, but some people like Kmart. That's fine. That's
when
totally
we lived
fine.
in England, I missed Kmart. I was just like, I need to get a Kmart. And I'm like, damn, it's not here. What is the equivalent to Kmart in England? What is it? I don't know.
Primark. I miss Primark. I know it's not the same. I don't know how to, because that's a thing. I go home and I talk about Kmart. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you would love it. No, what's it like? I'm like, can't describe it. It's impossible. It's the same.
Words can't describe it.
I know. If they ever come in, I'll be like, is this it? You've really sold this. It's the dream. It's the same with, what am I trying to think? Like clubs, like bolos, as they call it, like bowling clubs, things like that. I'm trying to describe them to people. Like, it's like a pub, but they also play bingo, but it's not really a pub, and it's food, and it's really hard. You can't describe them without going.
Did you ever know about a meat tray before you came
Steve.
here?
Oh God, not before I came here. I think no. It's very strange. It's very Aussie, and one of Ryan's most proudest moments in life is that he's actually won the meat raffle.
No way! Oh my God, I've never known one.
I know. Yeah. I need to get him something like certificate or something. But conveniently, I was at a friend's. We were having a barbecue, and the boys were meeting us afterwards. Hence why he entered the raffle, and then he came to the barbecue as like the guest of honor with his free tray.
You turn up to a barbecue with a meat tray, and you're like the star of the show. Like, everyone wants to be your friend.
Random. It's like I remember the first time I saw one, I was like, "What? Or like, what is that?" Like, weird. Very, very Australian.
Very strange. Very strange.
I just thought of that
before
because
we got onto meat trays.
I don't even know.
I'm sorry.
We're talking about.
It was like the whole bowling club thing, and that kind of was just made my mind light up.
It goes hand in hand.
Steve loves to.
I love that you're proud of them.
You love to go off on your little tangents, don't you?
Meat tray tangent. That's hard to say. Meat tray tangent.
It's quite interesting what we're talking about here in terms of really knowing when to settle as well. So I put it on my Instagram earlier today, actually, and asked people, do you feel settled where you live as an expat? And I think it was like probably about 80% of people said no. And I was like,
wow,
I'm not the only one. And it's not that I don't feel settled in Australia, because if I think about the two countries, for me personally, Australia is my home now. I've been here like 11 years and I definitely feel like this is my place. And even like going back to the UK, I feel like it's weird, I don't really belong there anymore. But at the same time, do I belong in Australia? Do I feel like I properly fit in? Like, if I honestly thought about it, maybe I feel like I don't, because I'm not a surfer. I did try surfing once and I was terrible. But maybe if I did surfing, like I got into that, then maybe I'd feel like I fit in. But that's kind of a really weird thought process behind that. I don't even know why I feel like. Why do I feel like I need to do surfing to fit in?
I feel exactly the same. I cannot surf. I just fall over, and the 12-year-olds just run rings around me. I try, and I kind of still like Australia and feel Australian, but I'm a terrible surfer. But I don't know, maybe that's the thing that.
But I feel what I'm probably trying to say is like, a lot of people, especially Brits, when they come to Australia, they think, oh, it's just going to be like England, but better and sunnier and being like on holiday all the time. Whereas actually the two cultures are very different, I think. And, even though we're quite similar to Australians, I feel like there is a bit of a sort of a difference there for sure.
I just want to get your take on this as well, because for me, like when Annie and I lived in Brighton not so long ago, 2018?
Yeah, like 4 years. No, 5 years ago.
5 years ago.
Oh my gosh,
Whoa,
wow.
Time flies.
Anyway, look, I think there's a difference in the way people communicate. I think like Australians are a little bit more reserved, but when you sort of unpackage that reservedness, everyone gets along like a house on fire. But I think up front, it's a little bit the reverse with the English. I think people are very much like, jokey and very matey and have chats on the bus. I mean, the bus is a prime example. Everyone's your best mate on the bus. It's like, it's how it is. The tube, very much the opposite. But, I feel like buses are kind of a communal thing. And in Australia, you put people on a bus and just be quiet, wouldn't say anything. So unless someone's making a noise, then they're very vocal. So it's, it's kind of, I feel like there's an interesting play there. So I'm just interested to get your thoughts on kind of how you see that.
Yeah, especially as you've just come back as well, and coming back from being there in January, February, which are essentially like the worst times of the year to be in the UK.
Yeah.
So there's us thinking our little memories are like, oh yeah, everyone's like really friendly in England, like they're really nice. But you're probably thinking, maybe like being that those times of the year might be a little bit different.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to give you an answer, in all honesty. I'm trying to think of what strangers did I talk to, or did I honestly can't remember. Maybe that does answer the question.
Yeah,
strangers don't talk to each other. But I think here I also don't have a right answer or authentic answer, because when I first moved here, a massive thing was I need my own friendship circle. I've got people I know, but they're all Ryan's friends, partners, plus ones, etc. I just knew I needed my own circle, my own people, have a separate life to make it work as well as possible. So I was the weirdo that was talking to strangers when I first came here. So I don't know if they would talk to me first, because I was already there talking to them. So just things in like cafes and stuff. Dogs are great. Obsessed with dogs. You can just go and talk to people and say like, oh, can I please? Oh, also, you can't say, can I stroke your dog in Australia, because they think you're strange. Which is a really sad
thing.
Can
I stroke your dog?
Yeah.
It does sound a little bit kind of...
Yeah. They
never
said
even
you
thought of that
don't use
before.
that word. He's meant to say, can I pat your dog? Which I'm like, that doesn't come... Yeah, that doesn't come naturally, but I'm trying my best, because apparently you can get some weird looks. Anyway, so
I'm going to keep that in my pocket for next time I'm at the dog park. I'll pull it out to test it anyway.
You'll be banned. Don't do that. Don't listen to me on that one. But no, I really made the effort, and I'm quite shy. I wouldn't talk to strangers usually. It's just when you move, you've got to push yourself outside of the comfort zone. You've got to risk looking like a freak and starting those chats, because that's how you meet people, especially if you're staying in that area for a while. You know, you're going to live there and you want to make friends and your own connections and everything. So I really don't know the correct answer, because I guess I didn't talk to strangers in England, but I did here. So I don't know.
And do you want to talk about like how you got that friendship circle? You know, was it just about going to the dog parks, or what did you actually do to start to form those relationships?
I was really, really lucky, because I was at a job. I was applying for jobs during COVID, which wasn't ideal, but so I moved here on the 3-month tourist visa, so I legally wasn't allowed to work. Then once the 3 months were up, it was during lockdown. So yeah, it was difficult, because obviously businesses were closing. People were definitely not recruiting. So it was very sparse. But I very luckily ended up getting a job at a financial services company doing the marketing there. And in the building they were in, I think they owned it all and rented out this connecting room to a yoga teacher or a yoga studio. So I started going to that, thinking, oh yeah, I'll meet people there, something good for, health, fitness, blah, blah, blah. So I started doing that, and it was from there that I met people, which was amazing. And they're now they're my core friendship group here, my best friends that I know I'll stay in touch with forever, wherever in the world we end up. So very, very lucky just to have those people that it wasn't forced either. That was another thing. I was like, I don't just want to cling on to people because I'm like, please be my friend, and just be really, really forced like that. But yeah, again, anywhere in the world, if I'd have met them, I'd be friends with them. I hope they'd say the same about me. But yeah, very lucky.
Oh, that's brilliant. And just in terms of, just thinking back to that feeling like you can properly settle in one place or another. And I think maybe with all expats, and the same with you, Steve, I think expats and people who like to travel a lot are probably quite similar in a sense, in terms of once you get a taste for living in other countries or traveling a lot around to various countries, there's a stage where it's almost like that sort of disconnect from your normal life, and being able to then settle somewhere can be quite difficult. Like you're always searching for, I don't know. What is it?
I am an Australian citizen, and still I struggle to find my place. And look, the definition of my place and anyone's place is going to differ. For me, it's about community, people with the same interests. I like it, like open-minded people. I like different people. I like people who are all different, who have different interests, and can all come together and like share those thoughts and just bring you kind of a wider view of the world. So I love all those things. Amazing. It's super duper hard to find. If you find it, let me know. Send me a message, please. But I mean, that's the thing. I think once you start traveling, once you start moving away, like experiencing life in other places, and just the fact that you have that choice, I think brings its own anxiety, a bit like the paradox of choice thing. I think it brings its own anxiety with it. So it's a bit like being in the candy store and going, I've got 20 candy bars to choose from. Which one do I go for? And it's like you spend half an hour trying to pick it. And, well, I do anyway, but I like Kit Kats, but I won't go into that. So anyway, so pick your Kit Kat and go with it. But I think, the whole thing is that it is difficult to sort of feel settled, I guess. Wherever you go, there you are. So maybe it's less of kind of, finding your place and more finding yourself. Is that a little deep? 100%. I don't know, but maybe I just it's my interpretation.
No, you're so right.
But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's something. Again, don't want to sound really cringy and gross, but it is that whole finding yourself thing, and I feel like I am a completely new person since moving here. Probably catapulted a bit faster than I would have liked with the whole lockdown and everything. But again, like I said before, I think that was maybe not, I was going to say the best thing to happen, but not obviously. But it was just good because I had to cement myself. And I think what helps as well is we don't live in somewhere like Sydney where it's every other person you meet is an expat. It's very much, most people here are here. They've grown up here, or they're at least Australian, and they're settled. And that helps because I'm not saying bye to friends every other week like I know a lot of people in sort of bigger, wider expat communities are. So that definitely helps because I'm not questioning like, I've made this best friend, but how long have I got them for? It's like, well, they'll be here because they've grown up here, they've got mortgages or whatever. So I think that helps. But going back to what you said, Steve, about being at one with yourself and things, it might sound corny, but it's definitely true. Home is you, isn't it? You're going to have to be okay wherever you are. You can make it all mushy as well, but with your partner in our cases.
The one you're stuck
exactly.
with.
The one you're stuck with. But that's a big thing. And I think you two will probably, you've got the same benefits as Ryan and I in the sense of you've both lived in a country that's not where you were born and where you grew up. So you can actually have the conversations and we both know what the other one is talking about. And when I'm saying, I miss this, he knows the area I'm talking about or the food I'm talking about because he's had it as well. So it's just, that definitely helps. If I was with someone who was born and bred here, I think I'd struggle because I'd be talking about, I don't know, EastEnders, for example, and they're like, never heard of it. So it's just little things
they just wouldn't get it, would
make
they?
you feel closer.
I think until you become an expat, it's really, really hard to really get your head around, really understanding everything that comes with it. It's not just a case of, for me, it was, I left England because I wasn't particularly happy being on the tube every day and I just felt pretty miserable. So I was sort of escaping that life. And I know a lot of people do something similar where they're just, they're not happy where they are and that's the reason why they move over. But at the same time, like you're saying, you can move over here and it can be absolutely beautiful where you're living, but are you really going to be happy? Like sometimes it's like it takes a lot more to really understand why you're leaving rather than just doing it to escape something else.
Exactly right. Yeah, and a big advocate for that was your previous guest, Caroline McKenna of County Down Under. She's a great one. I think just following people online as well that you can relate to their content. And she's obviously moved back to Ireland and she's taking the Aussie lifestyle with her as much as she can, which is just incredible and inspiring. And I think, again, the experience she's had, she wouldn't be able to take that to Ireland if she never moved over here to Oz. So,
and I think with her situation, what's quite exciting for her is it's almost like she's sort of given herself almost like a time limit where she's like, I'm going to take a year off, or because she's got Australian citizenship as well. That to me, I'm like, wow, that's such a great idea, because when we did it just to move back to the UK. So our mindset was completely different, where it was like, okay, well, we're living here now. But then we had a big drama about getting Steve a proper visa, because we just sort of did it off a whim and we didn't really plan it at all. But whereas if you're going there and you're only going back for a certain time, it's like, that's when you get to really appreciate every single minute, where you can be like, right, well, I'm only going to be here for maybe a year, maybe 2 years, who knows? But at least I know that I can spend every day now really enjoying every minute with my friends and family, get to see as much as I can. Whereas if you go back, just going back there, then I think it would be quite easy to almost get into not a depression, but you'd see it completely differently, where, after the novelty's worn off, you'd be a bit like, oh God, why did I make that decision? I feel like I'm back here forever now. Whereas in actual fact, nothing really needs to be forever. Like, you can spend a certain amount of time in a place and love it, and you get to a point where you're like, okay, well, it's run its course now. I need to go and do something else, and maybe move back home. And then when you get back home, you might feel like, because this is what happens a lot with expats, being ping pong poms, which is obviously what we are, by going back and forth all the time. So it's an interesting concept to be able to view moving back in a very different way. I think it's very interesting, and it'd be super exciting to see how that turns out for her as well.
Yeah, definitely. And similarly, not that I can say that word, similarly, when we decided to move over here the second time, we obviously had a whole lifestyle, was renting and working full time and everything like that. But we decided, I think it was the June or July, that we were moving over, and we started the process of storage unit, shipping things over. And thank God for your content. Thank you so much if I've not said that, because
brilliant.
Thanks to you, we were able to ship things over. So helpful. But yeah, we didn't move until the February. So everyone in our circle, our family and friends, knew we were on that sort of limited timeline. And even though it was quite sad counting down, it was also good, because like you were saying, it made us appreciate the time. I'll just put my phone down and sit and watch telly, which I know is going to another screen, but just silly things, like just really appreciate being present with family at home, and just booking those things like afternoon teas with mum, what we were like, oh, we should do that one day, and just hadn't in 5 years. We eventually then did it, because we knew, like, oh, you're not going to be here forever. Not in a morbid way, just in a geographical sense. So that was a positive. It made us do those things that we say for one day, we got it in the diary. So that was nice.
But don't you feel like, I wish that, well, I know I'm talking about myself here, but in general, I wish that we could all just live like that, where you're like, well, I might only be in Australia for the next few years, so what's the point of me going on about how I miss summer and Christmas in the UK? Because I don't really know what the future is going to look like. Maybe we might go back, maybe we won't. But let's try and appreciate every single day that we've got here right now, because no one really knows what's going to happen. And I think if we all did that, we'd probably see everything in a different way.
Well, I'm actually Buddhist, so I got this kind of Buddhist perspective on the whole thing, So it's kind of like, okay, so I know it's a bit random anyway, but so bringing this into it. But the whole thing is, if there's a time limit on something, it goes back to the whole thing about remembering your mortality. You're going to die one day, all that sort of stuff. So if you have this kind of fixed, I know it's a little bit odd, but I'm going to go there. So if you have this idea of having this fixed time limit, you're much more like invested and concentrated on making the most of that time. Whereas if your time limit is just like unknown, and there's like just a random amount of time associated with that, well, then you just kind of delay things and procrastinate, and kind of you end up just kind of putting things off till, we can get round to that another time, or there's something else to do.
So many times.
I'll do that next week. There's like 100 excuses you'll come up with not to do it. But I think if you have that really kind of, you just remember that kind of, you're only here for a short time. So, make the most of it. I think it really brings a lot of value and kind of, enriches everything a little bit more. Yeah.
100%.
Absolutely.
So right.
It's like when you see like a lot of expats, they move to Bondi or Manly in Sydney, and they never leave there. And I'm like, gosh, you've come all the way to Australia. Like, go and see some of it, because it is an amazing country. Like, the wildlife, the outdoors is absolutely incredible here. And I just think there's so much more than just those 2 suburbs, to go and see. So it's quite interesting. But I'm super interested to know, actually, as you said, like you feel like you're kind of living like the sort of best version of yourself here, which I totally understand that, and I feel like that too for myself. But I'm kind of interested to see, what does that mean to you? Like, how different is your life here compared to what it was before you came over?
I think I just said yes to things I never would have dreamt of saying yes to back home. Speaking of like spirit, I don't know why I'm stumbling over my word. Spirituality. There you go. Somehow. Just things that I tried going to meditation classes and like chant classes and things like that. I'd never heard of these things, so I don't know if they do that. I mean, they must do in England, but it's just like never crossed my radar ever. So I think it was just surrounding myself with the people I did as well. They were into all of this, and I just like, sure, let's give it a go. And again, the more things like that I went to, the more people I'd strike up conversations with and like friends I'd make. So it's just a win-win. And I just thought, what is there to lose? If I didn't like it, I don't have to go again. But yeah, I've learned a lot. It's just like we were saying before, being more open-minded. And a friend of mine, when I saw her back in England, she was just taking the mick out of me, but saying how good it was. She was just like, you and all your crystals and things. I was just like, I know, I don't recognize myself. I had no interest. I had no knowledge.
Feeling well? I've got a crystal for that.
Like
I've got a crystal.
I've got right here.
Oh, there you go. You have right there. Oh,
if you're watching
Please, and look at this. I'm really bragging now. This one from Apprentice.
If you're watching this podcast,
or if you're listening to it, rather.
What, listening or watching? Well, you can watch it as well on Spotify. But if you are listening, Amy just held up 2 massive crystals next to it. I'd love to know what do they mean, Amy? What are they about?
Oh God, I knew this was going to happen. Oh, I've done that because I'm like, they're just pretty.
You just like the colour?
I might have to get back to you, honestly. One of them was a gift, like I said, so I don't know what that is. This, I want to say citrine. I don't know. I'm a fraud, is what I'm trying to say. I'm no expat.
It's not a trick
Some of them are like, oh, this one's a heart shape. So I'm like, yeah, that's really cute. I'll just get that one. And it's quite, I use it as a bit like a stress ball because it's on my desk where I work and everything. So sometimes I'm, instead of picking my nails or something. So there we go. That's its use for me. But
do you feel, another question here, do you feel like, is kind of random, is your eating habits, are they different over here to what they would be in the UK?
They are, because like I said, moved Feb 2020, but in the January just before I moved, I decided to be veggie or pescatarian actually. So yes, but that was not because of the country, I guess. I'm probably living in the worst place in the world to not eat meat. Sorry, Steve, from the meat trade. I know this probably
caused like, I'm not a huge I'll eat, I've eaten it, but
no, exactly the only reason I'm asking is because when I moved over, like I didn't really know how to cook. I'm going to be honest here. Like, it wasn't really my thing.
Any struggle to boil an egg.
Oh, it wasn't that bad. But like, in England, working in London, you'd go to prep for lunch. Obviously, you don't have to make your lunch in London. Well, I never did in London. And then, the evenings I'd be at the pub getting drunk. So dinner didn't really happen. And then when I came to Australia, and I was like, where's the M&S food? Like, what do you cook? And then it was like, well, you cook from scratch. And I'm like, huh? What? Like, why would you do that?
Ready meals are surprisingly popular. Like the whole ready meal thing's just kind of the norm
in the UK.
Really,
yeah,
it's like dinner is just a ready meal. That's kind of
definitely and meal deals.
Oh, I love meal deals. Okay. I love meal deals.
No, you're gonna go on.
Huge big fan of meal deals. So basically, I love the whole idea of combining a drink and chips and a sandwich together. I mean, that's genius. Yeah. Absolute genius, I think.
So simple, yet Australia's not got onto that yet. What's going on?
They have, I think.
Oh, what? Where? I'm going to have to move. Where are we going?
I'm sure I've seen it. I'm sure I've seen it somewhere.
So when we came back in 2018, it was like the whole meal deal thing hadn't really caught on. And then, there was a huge shift. I think maybe 7-Eleven realized that, there is money to be made in sandwiches. Let's make them good instead of like 2 bits of bread with like a token bit of meat in the middle or whatever the filling was a token. Anyway, so it was it was after that. That was after that, kind of things changed, and then now you've got this whole good sandwich thing going on. At most places you can find a pretty good sandwich. So I think, but going back to the whole meal deal thing, huge fan of sandwiches. Sandwiches are amazing. The meal deal thing, once the whole combination there of chips and sandwiches together, if you want to get creative, you can put chips on the sandwich. Oh,
you can, yeah.
Mind blown. Anyways,
it's a new world.
Sorry. Anyway, I'm digressing. Let me just take myself out of meal deal world and just come back down to earth here. Okay, sorry. Now, what are your thoughts on meal deals?
I miss them.
Which is your favourite one, Amy?
That's your favourite one.
Well,
which place is it from?
Oh, okay. Well, if I'm feeling fancy, it's M&S, of course. But I think they're the most pricey as well. I think they're like £4 or something, which is ludicrous. I remember Sainsbury's was very good. And I do really like the cheese and onion one.
Oh.
I feel like it's boring. It's a bit smelly, but it's just yum.
It's good, isn't it? I do like the cheese and onion one. Is very good. How about the red? How about the red Leicester? Remember the red Leicester? Do you ever have that?
Oh yeah, big cheese fan. Yeah, yum.
Egg and cress. What do you think?
Egg and cress.
Egg and cress.
What?
Everyone, they're always the ones that are left over, right? Because no one likes it. So they're always
and they go all warm and gross. No. I can't get my head around egg in a sandwich.
Yeah, same.
What?
That's what I was about to say.
Weird.
Egg in a sandwich, no. It's just not right. No,
it's the course. It's
although on like toast, perfect.
Yeah,
favorite food ever.
Oh my god,
in sandwich, no.
That. Weird. How weird is that?
Very.
You know what it is? It's mixing it with other foods. That's what's weird. Like with salad and no.
Or just eating egg with two hands. I don't know.
I'm with you on that. Oh my god,
weird, isn't it?
Well, that's clearly an English thing because in Australia we're doing that bacon and egg roll thing all the time. So
I'm glad I've met someone else who feels the same as me about egg and sandwiches.
I think we've uncovered something new here. This is a new thing now. An egg in a sandwich is a new
Instagram stories coming up.
So, all right, Amy. So let's. If you had to give someone who's listening who's going to move to Australia or thinking about moving to Australia, what are your tips? What are your 3 top tips for someone moving?
Oh, 3. Okay. First one, and it sounds like I'm just trying to be your best friend. I am, but also just head to your website because I'm telling you, if that didn't exist, I don't know how I genuinely don't know how we'd have moved. Just the things you didn't think about, and it was so handy because we've done the partner visa process the same as you guys. So your video on that, it was incredible.
If you're listening, that is londonerandsydney.com. Just thought I'd throw that in.
Wow. Yes. Thanks for the plug, Amy.
That is amazing. An amazing
plug. We didn't even prep her on that one.
Didn't prep either.
They didn't. Pay me later, but that's fine. No, that was a real godsend, complete lifesaver. But I think I know this isn't possible for everyone, and I didn't do this, so I guess I'm not really recommended. But I think a good idea, if you can, is to come over for a holiday, a little trip, just to suss it out. I don't know. Maybe if I did that, I don't know if I would be here now, if we'd have lived here as long. I just came in blind. Again, like what we were saying, I was going off of what I saw on the TV and things. I just can't imagine coming over either on my own or with friends or with a partner who'd never been here either. Just starting completely from scratch. I really admire anyone who does that, and I know tons of people do. But yeah, that would be wild. If you can, just to suss out the area, because like what we were saying before, that's a big chunk of your life, where you're living and where you surround yourself. So that would be another tip. And oh gosh, the last one is, it sounds silly, but something that makes me feel closer to everyone at home is that I ensured I made a note of everyone's birthdays, even just like people's wedding anniversaries. I got an address book for the first time in my life and got everyone's up-to-date addresses. And just sending cards home, it really means a lot to both parties. So I always get such grateful thanks when a card is received over there. But it's just nice to think like, oh, a little bit of me has gone there when I feel bad that I can't be there physically. And I just think really making that effort, because our lives have obviously turned completely upside down when we've moved, but the people that we've left, they're still the same. So I think we can just leave a bit of a hole in that sense to the people we leave there. So just go out of your way and be a bit, a bit more thoughtful, a little bit nicer.
Oh, that's some great
It will
tips
make you
there.
feel
That's
positive.
really, really sweet, Amy. Thank you.
Tried.
That's great. Well, I would just like to say thank you so much for joining us today on our podcast. There's been so many really good chats here about what it really feels like to be an expat. And I feel like we need to talk way more about this going forward, because I feel like it just really helps everybody else who's in the same boat. So thanks so much, Amy, for opening up today and sharing your story and all your thoughts about being an expat.
Yeah, we've been everywhere from meal deals through to places to to think about living, how to think about where to move to. The whole shenanigans is all there. It's all there for you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel like I've known you both forever and we're just having a catch up. So it's been lovely. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. All right, guys. Well, we'll be back soon for more from the Expat Reality podcast. And thanks for listening. And we'll
Thank
be
you
back
for listening.
soon.
And thanks, Amy. And we shall see you soon. Take care. Bye.